After Jesus rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, 11 ordinary men carried his message into a world that hated them for it. We know their names: Peter, Andrew, James, brother of John, John, Thomas, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, James son of Alphaeus, Simon, Thaddeus, also known as Jude, and Paul, who joined later. But how did their stories end? How did the men who walked with Jesus die? Peter, the fisherman, called to be a fisher of men. A man known for his boldness, his mistakes, and his love for Jesus. After Jesus' crucifixion, Peter became a central leader in Jerusalem. Later, he traveled to Antioch, an ancient city in Turkey, to Corinth in south-central Greece, and eventually, he arrived to Rome. Under Emperor Nero, Christianity was under a brutal persecution. Peter was sentenced to crucifixion in Rome, on Vatican Hill. But Peter made one request: "I am not worthy to die as my Lord died." Peter was crucified upside down. One of the most famous martyrs in history, a fisherman who became a global symbol of courage. Andrew, Peter's brother, was the first disciple Jesus called. He preached in Greece, Scythia, and possibly as far as the Black Sea. In the city of Patras, Andrew's preaching angered Roman authorities. His death is described by the 2nd century Acts of Andrew. He was condemned to die on an X-shaped cross, now known as the St. Andrew's Cross. But here's the chilling detail. He wasn't nailed to the cross. He was tied to prolong the agony. Witnesses said Andrew preached to the crowds for 2 days from the cross, refusing to stop proclaiming Jesus until he died. James, the brother of John, was one of Jesus' closest friends. Present at the Transfiguration and the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus was arrested. His death is the earliest martyrdom recorded in the Bible. James was beheaded with the sword, by order of King Herod Agrippa I, around 44 AD. The Book of Acts states that Herod had him killed as part of a persecution of the church. The soldier who arrested James was so moved by his courage that he converted on the spot and was executed alongside him. James was the first apostle to die for Christ. John, the beloved disciple, had a different fate. He spent years in Jerusalem, and later became a leader in Ephesus. Under Emperor Domitian, he was arrested and exiled to Patmos, where he wrote the Book of Revelation. Tertullian, a 2nd century writer, says John was once plunged into a pot of boiling oil, and survived. After Domitian's death, John returned to Ephesus, and lived to old age, likely dying around 95 to 100 AD. John is the only apostle believed to have died naturally, although his life was anything but peaceful. Thomas, known for doubting Jesus, became one of the boldest missionaries of all. He traveled farther than any other apostle, reaching India, where Christianity still traces its roots to him. The Acts of Thomas tells us that he confronted local rulers by preaching against idol worship. In Mylapore, near modern Chennai, Thomas was killed by multiple spears thrust into his body. To this day, millions of Indian Christians call themselves St. Thomas Christians. Philip preached in Phrygia, modern Turkey, especially in the city of Hierapolis. He angered Roman authorities by converting the wife of a proconsul. Philip was crucified. Some accounts say upside down, like Peter, others say he was stoned or pierced first. His tomb was discovered in Hierapolis in 2011, confirming early traditions of his ministry there. Bartholomew may have traveled with Thomas to India, and also preached in Armenia. His death is one of the most gruesome of all traditions. He was flayed alive, skinned, and then either beheaded or crucified. Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel even depicts Bartholomew holding his own skin. Armenian Christians remember him as one of the first to bring the gospel to their land. Matthew, the former tax collector and author of the gospel bearing his name, traveled to Ethiopia. Early traditions say he was killed while celebrating Mass. Other traditions place his martyrdom in Persia. His exact death is uncertain, but nearly all ancient sources agree. Matthew died as a martyr. James became a major leader in Jerusalem. Many believe he wrote the book of James. Hegesippus, an early church historian, says James was thrown from the temple wall in Jerusalem during a Passover festival. Amazingly, he survived the fall. But he was then beaten to death with a club as he prayed for the forgiveness of his attackers. Just like Jesus. Simon the Zealot was once part of a revolutionary group that resisted Rome. But after meeting Jesus, he turned his passion into spreading the gospel. Traditions place him in Persia or Syria. His death differs by tradition. Crucifixion, being sawn in half, or killed alongside Thaddeus. Though unclear, nearly all accounts agree. Simon died as a martyr for Christ. Thaddeus preached in Edessa, Syria, and possibly Persia. Many traditions say he was killed with a club or axe, alongside with Simon the Zealot. He is remembered for one powerful line in the Gospel of John, asking Jesus, "Lord, why do you reveal yourself to us, and not to the world?" His devotion would eventually cost him his life. Though not one of the original 12, Paul became one of the most influential apostles. After years of preaching across the Roman Empire, Paul was arrested in Rome. Because he was a Roman citizen, Paul could not be crucified. Instead, he was beheaded by sword around 64 to 67 AD. His final words were a triumphant declaration. "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." These men began as fishermen, tax collectors, skeptics, and ordinary workers. They didn't gain wealth, fame, or power for following Jesus. They gained courage, purpose, and the willingness to die for what they had seen with their own eyes. The resurrection didn't give them a new religion. It gave them the strength to change the world.